A dirt bike rider, a dirt bike rider, a dirt bike rider.
In September of 2011, Tammy and I made a trip up to Colorado. We planned to ride our bikes up around Buena Vista later in the week, but we got a break early in the vacation when we were in Colorado Springs and had a day extra that we hadn't planned on having. So we decided to take our bikes up early, get a little burn-in time, make sure the tuning was right and the jets were set and all that kind of thing. And we went up to Woodland Park, which is just a little ways outside of Colorado Springs, and we rode at the 717 or 717 trail area. We had a little adventure early in the day where Tammy's battery died about 50 yards up the trail. Thank goodness it wasn't farther. We were able to find a battery in Woodland Park and get going again. We found this area thanks to Charles Wells' ATV Guides to Colorado Central Mountains. I'll put a link in the doobly-doo so you can go find the book. Very informative, very easy to read, easy to understand. The maps could be a little better, but they get you enough information to get your way around. We were looking for something challenging, something that would be fun and difficult, which is kind of our style. And this didn't really disappoint. It was easier than I thought it would be based on the descriptions in the book. The only challenge I really had with it was that, as you can see here, it's not exactly sandy, but it's kind of that grape nuts texture of tiny little gravel. It's not quite sand. It got a little squirrely on my motorcycle a couple of times, but not too bad. Also, the book mentions these roller coaster areas, and if you watch closely on the video, you can see my fender coming up and down in a few places. I call those whoop-de-doos. They're a little hard to see from the helmet cam, but you can see when I slow down, and you'll see the fender on my bike go up and down. That's just going over whoop-de-doos and that sandy stuff. You can see that the first few miles of the trail are fairly straight, open, where you can really get some speed up and have a good time. After a while, it does dip down into the trees and get windy and get some pretty tight turns, which I enjoyed, but Tammy had a little bit of trouble with that with her four-wheeler getting through some of the tighter turns in the trees. The other thing you'll notice, which the book does mention, is that trail finding is fairly difficult. We didn't get lost, we didn't have any real problems, but the signage is really lacking. And yes, that is the sound I make when my tires get squirrely in the sand going down this fairly steep hill. At this point, there's a fork where you can either go up a steep hill or into the woods, and there is a small brown sign with an arrow on it and no numbers to indicate that I'm on any particular trail, but I picked the arrow, which was to the left, and it turned out to be the right way. Like I said, when we get into the trees, it does get a little more twisty, and there are a few places where there's some rock ledges and some tree roots and things like that that keep it interesting. Since we had not been there before, I was taking it very slow. We went quite a bit faster on our way back out. But there's nothing in here that a moderate rider can't handle, and probably even most beginners. When I came out of the trees, all I could see was that really nasty hill climb over on the other side. Turns out that actually is closed and it's not part of the trail, so don't try it. It was a relief that I wasn't have to worry about Tammy getting up that. Turns out this was just an optional hill climb that met right back up with the trail. On the way down from here, you'll hear my back tire sliding in the sand as it gets steep. It was a very bright and cloudless day, and the camera exaggerates the effect, but coming in and out of the sun and the shade really does make it hard to tell the contour of the trail ahead of you, whether there's roots or rocks or more whoop-de-doos or whatever. So that did slow me down quite a bit just because I was going into the unknown. This is one of probably 2 or 3 areas where if you had an inexperienced rider on 2 wheels, between the steepness and the sandy grape nuts texture of the trail, this could be a little sketchy. Because of the aforementioned adventure with Tammy's battery, we only got to ride for a couple of hours. And so this was the hardest obstacle that we came across for Tammy, for a 4-wheeler. As you can see, on 2 wheels it's a piece of cake. But I knew that she would have trouble with it. She was on a sport 4-wheeler, which has a solid rear axle and not nearly so much suspension as the utility style 4-wheelers do. So an obstacle like this is really tough for her. But she did good.
Awesome.
This is just after what the Wells book calls the hardest part of the entire trail, a long kind of gravelly hill climb that comes up to this open area and then goes into a pretty long descent that's almost as tough but not quite. I'll show some video later of me going down that difficult part, and that turned out to be the hardest part of the day for me on 2 wheels. This is one of those situations where the video really doesn't do it justice. This is a lot steeper than it looks.
Wow. No problem.
How am I going to make it up that thing?
It's the same as the one that came up. It's just curvier. Yeah, coming up that's going to be pretty fun. I'm thinking that's the hill they were talking about.
I don't know how I'm going to get up that.
We'll get you up it.
Ugh.
Because of our shortened day, we had to turn around at this point. This is waypoint number 3 in the Wells Trail Guide. Big, nice, wide camping area. This is where we turned around. It turned out to be about a little over 9 miles. So here we are doing that most difficult section the other direction. So this way we're going up the side that's very twisty and narrow, and then in a minute we'll be going down the one that's wider but real sandy and steep. On this one, really it's just about momentum, keeping moving. Right near the top there's a pretty big tree root across the trail that might surprise you if you're not ready for it. Here it is. now down the other side. The problem that I had was that it was just so sandy or gravelly or whatever you want to call it that even in first gear I let the clutch out and I would just drag the back wheel, and so it would get all squirrely on me. And as you can see on a four-wheeler, it's just a piece of cake.
Nice and wide, good.
So that was our experience with one little piece of the 717 area. It looks like there's much more trails than what we did. Lots more of the area to explore. It's a place I'd like to go back to. It was a lot of fun. I think it would be a great place for intermediate and even maybe beginners with some help in a few spots. As you can see, the staging area is really big and nice and has a porta potty, and we just had a great time, and sometime we'll have to get back up there.
That was fun as turkey.